Hello everyone and welcome back to my videos. Are your children always fighting? Are you having to referee and be in between and have to solve conflict all day long and you just don't know what else to do to help your children get along? Today, I'm going to be giving you some ideas and some of the solutions that I use here in my home to help my children get along. It is normal for siblings to fight. What is not normal is when children are constantly fighting and they've created this habitual way of treating each other in mean ways. And you feel like you're living in a house full of enemies. And this doesn't resolve itself. If you don't help your children curb those bad habits, this will continue into adulthood. And that is why you have siblings that are enemies, even in adulthood. It's important to help siblings get along. And I'm going to go ahead and share with you some of the things that I do here in my home. So, one of the first things that we do in our home every week is that we have a family meeting. And in our family meetings, I went over in depth on what we do with our family meetings in my private community, Bloom Sisters. But in our family meetings, one of the main things that we do is, let's talk about what went wrong this week. What are some of the things that happened that you weren't happy with? What created conflict this week? Because when you review the week that way, then you can begin to derive lessons from it and help next week be better. So we'll write down on a board, what are some of the conflicts that we had? What are some of the issues that you had with your siblings that made you upset or that created fights and conflict? And so we write them down on a board, and then together we will come up with solutions. So I'm going to go ahead and bring you a little closer and show you some of the things that we wrote on the board for this week. Okay, so here are some notes from our family meeting this week. So here we have our relationship issues that we wrote on the board. We went around the table and we asked the kids, what are some of the issues you had this week with your siblings? And so here we have number one, loud singing. We have a child that loves to sing really loudly and it bothers the other kids. So that is something that we put on the board. Another one was making fun of someone's things and ideas. That a few of the kids had issues with comments, negative comments to their artwork, to the work that they're doing, or to their ideas. Number three, snatching things without asking. That is another one that we had issues with this week. Usually the little ones will snatch things if it belongs to them or if they want it, and it's something that is one of our rules. We do not snatch things. We ask nicely for what we want. Number four, we have a few kids who were using mean voices this week, and it was a huge problem because it was hurting the feelings of other children. So that is something that we wrote on the board. Number five, touching someone's belongings without asking. One of the rules that we have in the home is do not touch someone's personal belongings without asking, because that is a huge problem area in many homes. Then once we wrote down all of the issues that they had going on this week, the major issues, then we talked about some solutions. We'll talk about it together. I'll ask the kids what are some things we can do to not have these issues next week, and I will help them along the way. So let's look at, for loud singing, the solution was, I will not sing loud. If it bothers someone, I will be singing somewhere else. So if your singing is really loud and it bothers someone, go to your room. Maybe go to the living room, go outside, go somewhere else where you're not going to bother another person. Number two, for making fun of someone's things and ideas, we have, this is something that I helped them with because they were having issues with it. I will voice the positive feedback and silence my negative judgments. You don't always have to say everything that's on your mind. You don't have to say that you don't like someone's drawing, that you don't like someone's clothing. You can keep those things to yourself. You can silence those negative judgments. And that is what we talked about for this week. For number three, snatching things without asking, simply, I will ask nicely for what I want. And I will wait patiently until they give it to me in my hands. I will not snatch it. And I will have the little ones repeat the solutions. I will ask nicely for what I want. Okay, now let's go on to number four, mean voices. I will use a sweet or neutral voice. So I tell the children, you can use a sweet voice. If you don't have that sweet voice that you want to use at that moment, use a neutral voice, a neutral tone, where you're not using a mean voice and you're not sounding like an enemy to your siblings. And I always talk about that neutrality, how you can go back to that neutral voice, that neutral state of being. And the last one is touching someone's belongings without asking, which is always a huge problem in the home. I will not touch someone's belongings without asking. Everyone has personal things in the home. They usually keep them in their room, in their closets. And you cannot go to someone's room or someone's closet and take something without asking. And that goes to the parents as well. You cannot go into our bedroom, into our drawer, into our closet and take an item without asking. And now I'm going to turn the camera a little closer and share with you how I use this chart throughout the week to help our family. Do your children have issues memorizing their multiplication facts? A lot of children do. I made a workshop many years ago working with my, at the time, 7-year-old. She's 12 now and she's doing algebra. But I shared with you in that workshop how I taught her how to multiply using a very basic notebook method, X and songs. It is the way that I was taught back in the 90s, how to multiply and how to memorize all of my facts. And now she is 12 and she's doing algebra. And this is how I taught all of my kids who need to learn their multiplication facts, how to multiply and how to memorize them. I want to share that workshop with you because I think it will be a great blessing. I'm going to link it below in the description box of this video. And I'm also going to give you a special discount code that's going to be valid for the next 3 days. I hope you can take advantage of it. So that was a close look of our family meeting notes, and I like to leave them displayed throughout the week, either on this board or on another big large piece of paper that I will display. That way I can use it as a reference point. I can always come back to any of the things that we had issues with the prior week, and let's say I have a child that's doing the loud singing. I will say, go back to our board and tell me what was the solution for the loud singing issue. I will not sing loud if it bothers someone. I will sing somewhere else. I will go to my room. I will go to the loft. I will go outside. That is the solution that we agreed upon in our family meeting. And I will just reiterate it again so that the child knows. So this is a great reference point because every week we want to start changing those bad habits. And the way that they begin to change those bad habits is when they have an alternative action. That is why we have these solutions here. What is the alternative? What are you going to do different? And that is what most children don't know. They don't know how to be different. They become this habitual person, and it's not very easy to change. It's not very easy for adults to change. So, let alone a child. So it's really important to use this family meeting so that you can offer solutions for your children and then implement them throughout the week. I also will apply consequences. Let's say that I've already said to the child, go to the board. Remember what we said about our singing. What was the solution? If the child continues after that warning, after that, me having to ask them to come to the board, I will offer consequences. Consequences mold behavior. There is nothing more powerful than consequences. I don't have to yell. I don't have to hit. I don't have to do abrupt punishments. I use consequences, and I have different consequences that I use here in my home. I try as much as possible to use logical consequences, but I also have a series of other consequences that I use that are very effective. And I did make a whole series videos on the consequences that we use here in our home in my private community videos, and you can see that in our private library. I'll link it below. But it is very important to apply consequences. So for example, for loud singing, if I've already asked a child to go to the board and look at the solution and they're still singing loudly and it's bothering others, I will ask that child to go to their room and stay there until they can lower their voice and come back out and not bother their siblings. And so, but I try to have the consequences as much as possible be related to what the child is doing, because there's big lessons there. So every week we're looking at our board and we're changing those habits. It's really important because usually the things that happened last week are going to happen this week, and they're recurring things. Usually families have very common things that get repeated over and over and over again. After a while, you're going to see that some things are just not going to pop up on your family meeting. You're not going to have the mean voices anymore. You're not going to have that sibling that's snatching things, because habits have begun to take place. Habits have begun to change. So that is why it's really important to have family meetings every week. And again, I have a lot of things that we do go over in our family meetings. This is just one of the aspects. The meeting is not just about the negative things that happen throughout the week. There's other things that happen there as well. It's really important to sit down also and write down some relationship rules for your children. Here I have 5 rules that I have here in my home for relationships, for how to get along better. Now, for your home, it may look different. Maybe you don't have little ones anymore that do the things that I have here. And then display your relationship rules. So let me give you an example. Number 1, do not touch personal belongings or personal toys without permission. That's a big one here. And when we follow that, there's a lot more peace. Number 2, do not do what bothers someone else. It can be loud singing. It can be name calling, joking inappropriately, tickling someone without consent, playing loud music in your room. Whatever you're doing, if it's bothering someone else, it needs to be changed. It needs to be changed so that it doesn't bother that other person. Number 3, respect personal space. There's no pulling hair, kicking, punching, ear pulling, touching someone's personal body. We don't allow that here. There is no hitting in our house allowed. And if there is, there will be consequences for it. Number 4, do not yell or use foul words. So we don't do yelling in our home. If you want to yell and use loud voices, you go outside. And of course, we don't have this issue of foul words here in our home because our children don't hear it. They don't hear it in media and they don't hear it from us. So we don't hear it here in our home. But that is something that is here anyway. And number 5, do not snatch or take what someone is using. This includes electronics or sitting spaces. Do not take someone else's things. And these are our 5 relationship rules that when our kids follow them, our home is a lot more peaceful. I'm going to link it below if you would like a copy of this, a free copy of it. But of course, you can also make your own and draft it to be particular to your family needs. Every family has different conflicts. Every family has different things that they deal with on a daily basis. As you continue to have your family meetings and as you continue to address your children and offer appropriate consequences, and as you continue to go over your family rules that you have agreed to as a family, your children are going to begin to change. One thing that we always do to end our family meetings is that we pray together as a family, and we will ask the Lord to help us in these issues. Without God, we cannot do anything. And so I really believe that all these things that we do, they help, but God is the one that actually changes the heart of our children. And that is why at the end of our meeting, we pray together and we ask God to help us be more kind, to help us be more loving, to help us not use those mean words, to help us share whatever issues we're having with. We'll ask God to help us with those issues. And I really believe that is what helped our children get along really well. If you look at my children, a lot of times you'll see them hugging each other, they'll hold hands. They get along well, although as you can see, these are some of the things that went on and that I had to address this past week. But as I continue to work with my children, because children are a work in progress. They are a work in progress. And that is our job, to guide and to help our children. I hope that you have enjoyed this video, and I hope that it has given you some ideas. I'm going to link a relationship poster below if you would like a free copy. And also if you'd like to join us on our Bloom Sister community, where I detail on how to apply consequences. I'm going to also link that below. I have a whole video library that I offer there with a lot of things that you don't see here on YouTube. I hope that you have enjoyed the video, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.
Lead me through the deep valleys, through the coldest of nights.